We're live. Hello and welcome to another virtual dose of vitamin Z. I'm out here at the bald eagle habitat with Elizabeth, a bird zookeeper for the DZS, and we will be talking a little bit more about the bald eagles. So the Detroit Zoo is home to 3 bald eagles: Flash, Mr. America, and Captain Marvel. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about these 3 and how they came to the Detroit Zoo?
Sure. So hi guys, I'm Elizabeth. First we'll talk about Flash. Flash came to us in about 2009 from Alaska. He has been suspected to run into a power line and suffered a severe shock. So that left him unable to fly and unable to be re-released into his natural habitat. So then we took him in. We got Mr. America from Indiana in about 2017. He also collided with the power line, and he had to have his wing amputated from his injuries, so he obviously can't fly, so he came to live with us. Then we just got Captain Marvel last year. She was suspected to have been run into by a train, and a week later she was found in the Wendy's parking lot and unable to fly in Monroe, Michigan. So then she was brought into us for us to care for.
So all 3 of these have injuries to their wings that prevent them from flying?
Yes, none of them can fly, so they couldn't find their food, they couldn't get away from danger, so that's why they live with us now.
And how can you tell these 3 apart?
So Flash is the easiest. He's the largest of the 3. He also has most of his 2 wings, while the other 2 have amputated wings. He always looks a little fluffed out because his injured wing always hangs a little weird. He also has a band on his left leg. Captain Marvel is our only female. She has a band on her right leg. She is the 2nd largest eagle next to Flash. When she first came to us, she still had some brown in her feathers because she was about 4 years old, and they don't get their full colorations until they're 5. So that was easier to tell her apart. She also has a brighter beak and legs, if you can see that. And then Mr. America is the smallest of our eagles. He also has an amputated wing. He's the only one without a band on his legs. He is also the flightiest of our 3, so if you see someone running around a lot more, it's probably Mr. America.
All right, so you talked a little bit about how he's flighty and likes to move around, but how well do the 3 of them get along, and how do they what parts of their habitats do they like to use?
They love their perches. As long as we are not in the exhibit with them, they're going to be on their perches and just hanging out and looking around. They don't really... Well, let's see. Mr. America was Captain Marvel's boyfriend for a while, but she seems to have latched on to Flash more now.
All right, so she has her choice, right?
She has her choice.
And are any of them breeding pairs?
They are not breeding pairs. We do not need to breed eagles anymore because they're now the least concerned in their natural habitats. So now zoos just take in the injured eagles that can't survive out in their habitats.
That is awesome to hear. So we talked about how birds run into power lines and are injured in the wild. So what should people do when they find an injured bird in the wild?
If they find an injured raptor, like an eagle or a hawk, first thing they should do is call a rescue agency, like a wildlife sanctuary or something, and they'll give you more tips on what you need to do. They can also come out and collect the bird. If you somehow end up collecting the bird, have him wrapped in a towel, put him in a nice, calm, dark place, because birds can get stressed really easily. If you find a window strike bird, like a small songbird, put them in a small box that's well ventilated and away from all the noise. Keep them in the dark. Do not try to feed or water the birds. That could actually cause more harm than good. And get them to a rehabilitator as fast as possible.
That is great to hear. Thanks for all that good advice. So going back to these bald eagles, you mentioned that they are not bred in zoos and they are rescue animals. Are there any other rules that you have to follow with bald eagles?
So bald eagles are protected by federal law. No one is allowed to take eagles, eagle parts, nests. They're not allowed to mess with any of the trees that they nest in or roost in. So for us, basically, we can't take feathers home or anything of the eagles. It has to all stay here. We do collect the feathers and we give them to the Fish and Wildlife to give
U.S.
to
Fish and Wildlife
U.S.
Services?
Fish and Wildlife to give to Native Americans for their religious ceremonies. But basically, we just have to be careful not to take anything of eagles home with us.
So I see one of the eagles moving. Do you know who that one is?
That one is Captain Marvel. She still has a little bit browner of her head. She also has the band, and she's also amputated on one of her wings.
So what Elizabeth is referring to is bald eagles are actually not born with the white feathering on the top of their heads. They don't achieve that white feathering until they reach maturity at around 5. Before that, they have brown feathering. So she is just about 5 years old.
Yes.
Do you know the ages of the other two?
We're guessing, since they were caught in the wild, we're guessing they're about 15 or 16 years old, just by the featheration and everything else.
So if you have any questions about bald eagles, be sure to send them in. We are taking questions. But in the meantime, can you tell us a little bit more about what it's like to care for the birds? What do they eat every day? What are some things you have to do to take care of the habitat? And can you talk about a little bit of the prop thing that I see going on right here with the branches?
Okay, so we feed these guys twice a day. They get mostly trout, but they also get rabbits and rats. In their natural habitat, they mostly eat fish, and they will eat some carcasses, so that's why we add the rats and the rabbits, just for something else for them to eat. We like to get in and get out as quickly as possible, just because they are from the wild, so they don't really like people too much. So when we have to rake their yard or weed whip or mow, we always stay on one side of the exhibit so that they have a chance to go to the other side. And then once we're done with that side of the habitat, we'll move over and allow the eagles to move to the side that we were just on. Their propping is so that they can get to it from the ground, since they obviously can't fly. And we have to make sure it doesn't get too high, because some of them will not be graceful when they come off of a high prop, and they will kind of face plant, so we have to watch that.
So you have to reach that good medium
Yes.
of giving them something to climb, but not so much that they can injure themselves?
Yes, they like to look around, but they can't be too high because they don't know how to get down nicely.
That is some amazing information. Thank you so much for Elizabeth for joining us today and letting us know more about the eagles. If you have questions, go ahead and continue to send them, and we'll be sure to answer them afterwards. In the meantime, thanks for joining us, and goodbye.